My dear child, hush now. Be still. Let the sound of your busy soul slow down, for there is a voice, gentle, mighty, eternal, that has been calling your name. But oh, how many times has the noise of this world grown so loud that you missed it? How often have you turned your ears to man's gossip, but left heaven's whisper unheard? There are habits, beloved, that stand like walls between your heart and God's holy breath. But today, yes, today, we name them, we confront them, and we lay them down, one by one, so that you may hear God's voice clearly, as pure as a river running through the mountains, as strong as thunder rolling across the sky. Let us begin. My darling, let me take you by the hand and walk you through a truth as old as time, but so often neglected in our modern days. There is something sacred in silence, something eternal and holy in stillness. But many of us have become strangers to it. We fill every crack of our day with noise. Noise from the radio, the television, the endless scroll of social media. The din of the outside world has become our lullaby, our alarm clock, and our constant companion. Yet in all that clamor, we find ourselves wandering in confusion, yearning for answers, longing to hear from God, but wondering why His voice feels so far away. Now, baby, don't misunderstand me. God is not absent. No, He hasn't gone quiet. He hasn't forgotten how to speak. But like a loving parent in a crowded room, He is whispering your name, and you are too busy listening to everything else to hear Him. You see, the voice of God does not shout over your chaos. It waits patiently, like a soft breeze brushing against your cheek in the middle of summer, like the rustle of leaves when the wind catches them just right. His voice comes in peace, in stillness, in holy hush. And yet, we've become so addicted to noise that we don't know what to do with quiet anymore. Silence makes some folk nervous. They fidget. They reach for their phones, for a screen, for something, anything, to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. But don't you know that's where the gold is found? Right there in the still moments where you can finally hear the whisper of heaven. Even Jesus, the Son of the living God, understood the sacredness of silence. He would steal away from the crowds, retreat into the wilderness, climb up into the hills just to be alone with His Father. He knew the importance of quiet. He knew that sometimes you must step away from the world to hear from the one who made the world. Now tell me, child, if the Savior of the world needed silence to hear from God, what makes you think and do without it? The world will keep you running. It will have you tangled up in 1,000 distractions, rushing from place to place, task to task, one chaotic sound after another. And you'll think you're being productive, you'll think you're accomplishing something, but really, you're just getting further away from your own soul's center. Let me be plain with you now. Constant noise is a thief. It robs you of reflection. It steals your intimacy with God. It drowns out the very words you need to hear to become who you were meant to be. There are revelations waiting in your silence. There are answers poised to pour into you the moment you learn how to sit in stillness. But as long as you let the world dictate your rhythm, as long as you keep feeding your spirit with static, you will never catch the frequency of God's voice. You've got to slow down, baby. You've got to learn to listen with your spirit, not just your ears. Because the language of heaven is not always thunder. It's sometimes a whisper, soft and sacred, spoken not to your mind, but to your soul. When was the last time you sat in a room with no distractions? No phone, no television, no background music, just you, your breath, and the presence of God. When was the last time you paused before your morning began, not to scroll but to seek, not to be entertained, but to be filled? The truth is, we are often more afraid of silence than we are of sin. But let me remind you, silence is not your enemy. It is your sanctuary. There is something holy about the hush. It is there that your soul finds its truest sound. It is there where God takes your trembling heart in his hands and whispers comfort, direction, healing, love. You don't need another sermon to hear from God. You don't need a burning bush. You don't need a prophet. All you need is stillness. A moment, a breath, an uncluttered space where your heart is quiet and your spirit is open. Make it a habit, beloved. Each day, set aside time to sit in silence. Not just absence of noise, but presence of peace. Turn off the world. Light a candle if you must. Breathe deeply. Let your mind slow to the rhythm of grace. And in that space, speak to him. But more importantly, let him speak to you. It may not come as a booming voice. It may not come as words at all. Sometimes it's a sense, a knowing, a peace that settles deep in your belly. That's God. That's his spirit moving in the quiet. And the more you practice listening in silence, the more familiar his voice becomes. Soon, you'll hear him everywhere. In the rustling leaves, in the sight of the wind, in the stillness of your morning, in the quiet corner of your soul. So quit the noise, child. Quit the endless chatter of the world. Make room for the divine whisper, because God is speaking. He's been speaking all along. You just need to be still enough to hear. And when you do, oh child, when you do, you'll never confuse his voice with the world's again. You'll know it like you know your own name. You'll feel it like warmth on your skin. You'll follow it like a light in a storm. So hush now, be still, and listen. God is calling. My sweet, precious soul, come close now. Let me speak into the quiet places of your heart, the places that have been bruised by the weight of your own doubt. For far too long, you've walked through life wearing garments of hesitation and shoes made of uncertainty, questioning not only your steps, but the very feet that take them. Doubting yourself is a burden, and Lord knows it's one that too many of us carry in silence. You see, there's a tremble that lives in the bones of the one who doubts themselves. It's not the kind of fear that shouts or stomps, no. It's subtle, like a slow leak in a strong roof, dripping and dripping until the whole house is soaked in insecurity. That doubt becomes your language, your lens, your lullaby. And soon, every decision is shadowed by the thought, who am I to do this? What if I fail? What if I never heard him right in the first place? Oh, baby, hush now. You were never meant to live like that. You were never meant to shrink yourself into corners of silence when God has called you to stand tall on mountains of purpose. That small voice inside that questions every move. That whispers, you're not enough. That ain't the voice of God. No, God doesn't speak in shame. He doesn't speak in fear. He doesn't wrap his words in hesitation. When he speaks, it's with clarity, with fire, with truth that doesn't shake when the world does. And when you doubt yourself, what you're really doubting is the God who made you. Now I say this not to wound you, but to wake you. Because I know what it is to wrestle with the mirror, to see the scars and the setbacks, and wonder if you've got anything of value left inside. But let me remind you, you are not your mistakes. You are not the names they called you, or the dreams you let die. You are God's handiwork, crafted with intentionality, etched with the fingerprints of the divine. You were formed in quiet power. Before your name was ever spoken on earth, it was whispered in heaven. God looked at your spirit and said, this one I have a purpose for. This one I shall use. And yet here you are, questioning what has already been written in glory. Now listen to me. The moment you begin to doubt your worth, your ability, your calling, that's the moment you start to block the voice of God. Doubt becomes a fog, thick and blinding. And where there is fog, there is confusion. And where there is confusion, clarity cannot dwell. God doesn't speak through chaos. He speaks through confidence. Confidence not in you alone, but in him through you. When Moses stood before the burning bush, shaking in his sandals, saying, I can't do this. I stutter. I'm not eloquent. What did God say? He didn't coddle. He didn't retreat. He said, "Who made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord?" In other words, don't tell me what you can't do. I made you. That's what God is still saying today. To you, right now, I made you. That means He knows every flaw and every brilliance, every wound and every wonder, and still He calls you. Still He speaks to you. Still, He sees something in you that is worthy, holy, powerful. But here's the thing, darling. God can speak to you all day long, but if you don't believe in yourself enough to listen and respond, you'll never catch the fullness of His message. You'll second-guess the signs. You'll ignore the whispers. You'll bury the blessing because you were too afraid to believe it was really yours. So let me ask you, what would change in your life if you stopped doubting yourself? What mountains could you climb? What words could you speak? What joy could you unlock if you truly believed that God knew what He was doing when He made you? You've got to rise above that internal critic, the one shaped by years of rejection, disappointment, maybe even trauma. You've got to stand up to that voice and say, "No more. I choose to believe the one who made me over the doubts that haunt me." Because doubt may visit, but it doesn't have to live with you. You don't have to feed it, water it. Let it grow roots in your spirit. You can evict it. You can say, "I trust my God more than I trust my fear." And let me tell you, when you start to believe in yourself the way God believes in you, something beautiful happens. You begin to walk differently, speak differently. You begin to carry peace instead of panic, purpose instead of pause. You begin to hear Him more clearly, because your soul is no longer crowded with self-criticism. There's room now, room for divine direction, for holy instruction, for sacred whispers that once got lost in the noise of your doubt. So yes, child, quit doubting yourself, not because you've got it all together, but because God does. Because He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Because you are chosen, not by mistake, but by majesty. Stand tall in that truth. Walk forward in that power. And listen. Really listen. For the voice of Lord, because it's there. It's always been there, waiting for you to believe in yourself enough to believe in Him. You hear me? Good. Now go on and shine. Oh, child, sit down a spell and let me talk to your spirit. Let me tell you something that the world will not whisper into your ears, because the world is too busy shouting. You see, we have made a God out of busy. We have bowed down to calendars, built altars out of obligations, and crowned exhaustion like it were a badge of honor. But let me tell you the truth. The raw and holy truth-hang business is not a fruit of the Spirit. It is not a sign of divine favor. And no, it is not the key to hearing the voice of God. We have filled our days with doing and forgot about being still, being quiet, being available for the Spirit to move, to whisper, to sing a lullaby into the broken places of our hearts. Oh yes, we run so hard, running after money, after approval, after position, after things that won't even hold us when the darkness falls. We say yes to every request, every meeting, every duty, until our souls are threadbare and our ears too weary to recognize the sound of heaven. But child, don't confuse motion with meaning. Don't mistake productivity for purpose. For what does it profit you to be busy from sun up to sundown if your soul is dry and your spirit can't hear a thing from the one who formed you? You see, God isn't trying to fit Himself into your busy schedule. He's waiting for you to make room. He's not knocking on the doors of your business. He's sitting in the quiet room you haven't entered in weeks, waiting for you to remember it even exists. When Elijah, the prophet of fire, was hunted and afraid, he hid in a cave. And the Lord said to him, "Come out, for I am about to pass by." And there came a great and powerful wind. But God was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But God was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire. but God was not in the fire. And then came a gentle whisper. And that, child, was where God was. But how can you hear a whisper when your life is thundering with noise? How can you hear when your phone buzzes every 10 seconds? When your calendar is choked with things that bear no fruit? You've got to unclutter your spirit. You've got to sit down and let heaven breathe over your chaos. Some of us stay busy because we're afraid to face ourselves in stillness. We think if we keep moving, we won't have to feel. But baby, healing doesn't come through motion. It comes through surrender. And you can't surrender if you won't sit down. Don't you know that even Jesus, in all his divine power, made time to get away? The scriptures say he often withdrew to lonely places to pray. Now think on that. If the Son of God had to step away from the noise, the crowd, the work, what makes you believe you can live wholly in a hurricane of distraction? We've got to learn to say no. Not because we're selfish, but because our souls need space to breathe. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you certainly can't hear the voice of God through one that's overflowing with noise, nonsense, and non-essentials. Let me put it plainly. Some of you are doing things God never told you to do. You're carrying burdens he never asked you to carry. You're showing up in rooms he never called you to walk into. And you wonder why you can't hear his voice. It's not because he isn't speaking. It's because you're too deep in the doing to recognize the direction. Stillness is not laziness. It is sacred. It is strength. It is surrender. You must be still enough to know when God is guiding you and when you're guiding yourself. Because self-driven business will burn you out, but spirit-led rest will build you up. And in that rest, in that holy pause, you'll find him again. You'll hear him again. You'll feel the warmth of his voice wrap around your heart like a blanket on a cold night. You'll feel clarity rise where confusion used to reign. You'll stop asking, what should I do next? And start hearing, this is the way. Walk in it. My darling, don't let the world bully you into believing that being busy is the same as being blessed. No. Some of the most blessed people I've ever known were not rich, not loud, not famous. But they had peace. They had time. They had joy in the quiet. And they could hear God like thunder wrapped in velvet. So today I'm asking you to do something holy. Stop. Just stop. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what am I doing that God didn't assign me? What am I running from by staying so busy? What still small voice have I been drowning out with my endless motion? Because when you finally lay down the weight of business, you'll find the gentle hand of God lifting you up, and he will speak. Oh yes, he will speak. Not in the wind, not in the fire, not in the earthquake, but in the stillness. And when you hear him again, clear and sweet like the voice of an old hymn, you'll wonder why you ever thought being busy was more important than being in his presence. So hush the hustle. Silence the spin. Let your soul settle. God is speaking. And this time, you will hear him. Child, let me speak this truth gently, for it is a tender thing. A wound that many carry quietly in the chambers of their heart. Some of us have become so used to the heaviness of unforgiveness that we no longer feel its weight. We wear it like a second skin. We tuck it beneath our Sunday smiles and carry it into every conversation, every decision, every prayer. But I must tell you, my darling, as long as you hold on to that hurt, that rage, that memory soaked in bitterness, you will never be able to fully hear the voice of God. Unforgiveness is a wall, not just between you and the one who wronged you, but between you and heaven. It is a bitter root, and child, no tree can grow sweet from a bitter root. You may speak in tongues. You may shout in the sanctuary. You may lift your hands high to the sky. But if your heart is full of resentment, you're worshiping with one ear closed. You see, God does not only dwell in praise. He dwells in peace. And unforgiveness disturbs the peace. It keeps the waters of your spirit muddy. It makes it hard to hear the sacred whisper of the Holy Ghost, because you are too busy rehearsing what they did to you, too busy counting offenses, too busy building altars to your pain. Oh, child, I know they hurt you. I know they spoke things over you that were never true. I know they broke promises, broke your heart, broke your trust. And I would never ask you to pretend that it didn't matter. But forgiveness isn't saying it didn't matter. Forgiveness is saying it will no longer master you. Because when you hold on to offense, you give the offender power over your peace. And what a tragedy it is to hand over your peace, the very place where God's voice is clearest, to someone who never honored it to begin with. Let me tell you something soft and sacred. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is not surrendering to the wrong. It is not a forgetting. It is not a denial of justice. No, baby. Forgiveness is strength. Forgiveness is power. Forgiveness is you saying, I will not let this bitterness write the rest of my story. Some folk, they're punishing others by holding on to a grudge. But all they're doing is poisoning their own soil. And no good thing can grow in poisoned soil. You want to hear from God. You want to walk in your calling. Then you've got to uproot the bitterness that chokes your spirit. When Jesus hung on that cross, nails tearing through his flesh, thorns piercing his brow, blood dripping onto the earth, he still said, Father, forgive them. Now if the Savior could speak forgiveness while suffocating under the weight of betrayal and pain, what makes you think you can't forgive the one who lied on you, or the friend who walked away, or the parent who didn't protect you? Forgiveness is not a favor for them. It's a gift for you, a holy release, a soul-liberating, chain-breaking, heaven-opening act of grace that makes room for God to move in your life again. Because as long as unforgiveness is sitting at the table of your heart, God's peace will not come in and dine. His voice will not speak over the roar of your resentment. You'll be praying for direction, praying for peace, praying for a word from the Lord. And yet your own bitterness will be the blockage that keeps the river of revelation from flowing. Child, listen to me. You can't live holy while holding hate. You can't ask for heaven's clarity while entertaining earthly grudges. If you truly want to hear God's voice with purity, with power, with peace, you must make room, and forgiveness is how you make room. It may not happen in a moment. It may take many tears. It may take trembling prayers and quiet confessions and days where you say, Lord, I want to forgive, but I don't know how. And that's all right. Start there. God will meet you in that honesty. He will take your willing heart and teach it how to let go. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It does not mean you invite poison back into your space. It means you release the venom from your spirit. It means you free yourself from the prison of pain. And when you do, oh child, how sweet the air becomes, how light your soul feels, how clearly you begin to hear the voice of your Creator. No more static, no more interference, just peace, just presence, just power. So today, I ask you, who are you still holding in the jail cell of your heart? What face still makes your spirit recoil? What name still echoes in your dreams with bitterness and blame? Lay it down. Lay them down. Write their name in the sand and let the tide of God's grace wash it away. You were not built to carry every wound forever. You were built to heal, to grow, to hear the one who formed you call you by your real name, forgiven. And when you walk in that name, you begin to forgive others. Not because they earned it, but because you have been set free. And free people, child, free people can hear God. Free people can follow God. Free people can walk in peace while the storm rages. Let go, release, forgive. And in that release, prepare to hear heaven, for God is waiting. He's been speaking. But now, with your heart finally unchained, you will hear Him, clearly, sweetly, powerfully, as only a soul at peace truly can. Oh, my dear heart, Come close now, and let me whisper something to your soul that this world has tried to make you forget. You were not born to be a puppet, not called to be everyone's doormat, nor shaped by the hands of God to live your life chasing the applause of broken people. No, child. You were made in the image of glory. But somewhere along the way, we all learn to bend and twist ourselves to shapes that please others. Parents, pastors, friends, lovers, strangers, until we can no longer recognize the shape of who we truly are. There is a sickness, a deep soul sickness called people-pleasing, and it is so quiet, so praised that folks often mistake it for love. But it is not love, it is not kindness. It is bondage. And as long as your life is tuned to the approval of others, you will never fully hear the voice of the one who formed you. Let me say it plainly. When you live for people's praise, you will die from their rejection. Oh, we want to be liked, don't we? We want to be invited in, chosen, embraced, celebrated. And there is nothing wrong with wanting love. But when the pursuit of man's approval becomes louder than the whisper of God, that's when the trouble begins. Because people, baby, are fickle. They will sing your name one day and forget it the next. They will cheer for you until you say something they don't like. And if your confidence, your direction, your obedience to God is tied up in the crowd's opinion, then your spirit is like a leaf blowing in the wind. Tossed and turned, never at peace, never rooted. You cannot hear God clearly when your ears are trained on every voice around you. When your every action is weighed by what they'll think, what they'll say, what they'll feel. That's not divine obedience. That's spiritual slavery. People-pleasing will make you say, yes, when your soul is crying, no. It will make you serve in places God never called you. It will silence your truth for the sake of politeness. It will cause you to ignore the whisper of heaven just to maintain the smile of a neighbor. But let me ask you this, childing. What is the cost of their approval? Are you willing to lose your purpose just to be liked? Are you willing to go deaf to God's instructions just to keep the peace with people who don't even know the calling on your life? Don't you know that Jesus himself was not liked by everybody? The same crowd that welcomed him with palms was the crowd that later shouted, "Crucify him." And yet, he stayed true. He stayed firm. Because he wasn't here to please people. He came to please his Father. And so must you. You must learn to walk in the freedom of divine approval. There is a boldness that comes when you realize that you don't need everyone to understand you, validate you, or agree with you. You only need to hear from God and follow him with all your might. Now, I know it ain't easy. People-pleasing is a deep-rooted habit. It's often born in childhood, when love felt conditional, when worth was measured by how quiet you could be or how many gold stars you earned. Some of us learned to perform for love. We learned that to be safe, we had to agree, accommodate, shrink. But baby, those lessons do not serve your destiny. The God who made you didn't put you here to blend in. He didn't light the fire in your belly for you to dim it just to keep others comfortable. You have a truth to tell. You have a calling to walk out. And you will not be able to do that fully if your spirit is constantly checking in with the world to see if they approve. You must get to the point where you say, even if they don't understand me, even if they walk away, even if they talk about me, I will still follow God. I will still speak what he puts in my mouth. I will still go where he sends me. That is freedom. And in that freedom, God's voice becomes clearer, brighter, louder. Because now you're listening with a clean heart. Not one clouded by fear of man, but one tuned to the frequency of heaven. There will be moments when people won't get it. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of pride. But baby, that's what they said about every prophet, every truth teller, every soul who chose God over comfort. Wear their misunderstanding like a badge of honor, not a wound. Because when you stop living to please them, you start living to please Him. And there is no sweeter sound than the voice of God saying, "Well done, my child." So take off the mask. Put down the performance. Step out of the circle of false expectations. Be who God called you to be, boldly, truthfully, fully. And the next time you feel the urge to twist yourself into a version of you they'll like, remember this: the real you, the one God made, the one who hears His voice, is more than enough. You don't have to chase their approval when you already have His. Now walk in that truth, and let God's voice guide you. Come close now, sugar. Pull your soul in and let it rest. Let me sit with you in the quiet and tell you something sacred, something sorrowful, something strong. There are things we hold close, things we reach for in the night, things we whisper about in the dark, that don't serve us, that don't bless us, that don't carry us closer to God. And yet we cling to them like lifelines, even as they slowly drain the spirit from our bones. Some of us, child, have found comfort in the wrong places, in habits that numb but never heal, in patterns that pacify but never purify, in pleasures that promise peace but leave us empty, sinful comforts, soft traps, velvet chains that bind the soul and cloud the ears. And I don't speak to you from a place of judgment. No, I speak as one who's been there, as one who knows how easy it is to seek refuge in the arms of addiction, whether that be the bottle, the bed, the food, the gossip, or the fantasy. I know how it feels to run to what feels good when life feels too hard. But beloved, hear me with your heart wide open. You cannot walk with God while holding hands with what keeps you broken. You cannot hear His voice clearly while you're wrapped up in the noise of your secret comforts. God is not hiding from you. He is not silent. But when the soul is soaked in sin, especially the kind we defend, the kind we justify, the kind we say God understands, His whisper becomes distant, not because He has turned away, but because we have wandered far. Oh, we know how to mask it. We know how to dress it up, cover it in charm, and call it just a little thing. But even little things can become loud in the spirit. Even little things, when fed over time, grow into giants that stand between us and God. You see, sin doesn't always scream. Sometimes it sings, sometimes it soothes. That's what makes it so dangerous. The enemy doesn't tempt you with chains. He tempts you with comfort. He offers you escape, not realizing he's giving you a prison with velvet walls. But child, you were not made for prisons. You were made for gardens, for rivers, for mountains, for glory. And the voice of the Lord, that still small voice that speaks in power and peace, is clearest in clean places. It is clearest in hearts that have made space for it, not just in desire, but in discipline. It's not about being perfect. No, none of us are. But it is about being surrendered. It's about recognizing when a thing is killing you slowly and deciding, even with trembling hands, to let it go. Let go of the relationship that drains your dignity. Let go of the secret indulgence that leaves you feeling hollow the next morning. Let go of the lie that tells you need the thing to survive. You need God, child. And He is enough. There is no high like His presence, no thrill like His peace, no comfort like His arms. But you won't know that fully if you're still tasting from the table of things that do not nourish your spirit. Some of us are spiritually starving because we're filling up on junk. And we come to God asking, "Why can't I hear you?" But the real question is, what's in your ears? What's in your heart? What have you made a home for that He never sent? You can't expect divine clarity while feeding on spiritual confusion. You can't mix light and dark and expect to see clearly. It's time, beloved, time to throw it away, time to pour it out, time to log off, step back, end it, confess it, and let God fill the space where sin once sat. Because here is the truth that makes angels sing when you let go of what's killing you. God breathes life into what's left. When you stop running to the counterfeit, he opens the door to the real. When you lay down your sinful comforts, you pick up something holy, something whole, something eternal, and suddenly you start hearing again. Oh yes, his voice comes back with sweet fire and sacred thunder. It washes over you like rain after a long drought. You feel clean. You feel awake. You feel connected to the God who is always there, always speaking, just waiting for your heart to clear the static. This isn't about rules. This isn't about shame. This is about love. God loves you too much to let you settle for less than his best. He loves you enough to call you out from your comforts and into your calling. He loves you enough to whisper, even when your ears are full of noise, come back to me, come home. And when you do, when you truly surrender and say, God, take all of me, even the parts I've hidden, even the things I've used to cope, when you say that, the heavens open, the veil lifts, and you hear. You finally hear. You hear his love, his instruction, his purpose, his promise. So go ahead.